Well, I've been getting lots done on this Camaro here, and actually I had it running yesterday. But I was going to try and test the trans brake and this shifter here. I had it wired in, in the way I thought was correct, but it didn't want to hold. So after doing some research, and it was kind of hard to find, I went on the MSD forums, tech forums, and I found out that you can't just wire in. Like I was going to wire in an RPM switch into the shifter, and that didn't work. So then I tried to wire in the shift light wire, which is this yellow wire here. And so I can turn some light on here. No, my light's dead. And that didn't work. So, because the shifter has to have power and ground, and then the MSD box, when the shift activates, it shuts off the power, so it switches it to ground, and then the plunger pops out and shifts the car. So I had to put this relay in, and now it's working. Now, if I use power and ground there now, so the shifter stays. And this is the white wire here is coming out of the MSD box. You see it's got voltage there. So as soon as I switch this to ground, it shifts the car. So the MSD, when that programmed RPM is reached, it'll switch this to ground and shift the car. So if anybody is wondering how to wire in a shifter like that with the MSD grid, here's what you need to do on the relay. Number 85 is 12 volts switched, and that's the red wire. Number 86 is the white wire, and it goes to the grid. Comes out of the, you can either use the yellow or the brown and white is the RPM activated switch, but I use the shift light, which is the yellow, coming out of the grid, because the TAC has its own shift light. So I don't need to run a wire into the shift light. So yeah, number 86, which is the white wire out of the relay, goes to the either the yellow or the brown and white off the grid. 30, which is the black wire coming out of the relay, goes straight to battery power. And then the 87A goes to the blue coming out of the relay. So I did all that, and now it works. So now I'm just in the grid program here, and you can go into monitor, and I've got right now I've got engine RPM, ignition timing, gear 1, battery voltage, recordings, shift light, burnout input, and launch input. So now the launch will be off the trans brake, and the burnout, which is the line lock button on top of the shifter there. So if I push that button, I don't know whether you can see this on the monitor, it's not very focused, but the burnout input should go on, and it does. Let it off and it goes off. And the launch, when I hit the trans brake, the launch one here does the same thing. So that's a good way to test your wiring. You can see it actually working in the MSD box just by going to the monitor and turning things off and on to see if it actually works. So now I'm finished up with the wiring here. The green wire here coming out of the relay wasn't used, so I'm just going to unplug it there and pull that pin out so the green wire is not hanging there. I didn't wire in nitrous. We have a nitrous relay there for 2 stages, but I didn't put that in because we're not running nitrous right now. So now I got the shifter working. I can fire it up again and test the trans brake, test the torque converter to see how high it stalls. The other issue I'm having is I cannot find or I cannot get communication out of this data logger. I checked the power right up to the data logger, power and ground. That's all good. Communication wires, everything's hooked up. But for some reason, when I plug it into the USB port here on the laptop, with the cable that came with the car, this plugs into the data logger and then goes to an adapter, and the adapter plugs into the USB. And I can't get communication out of the data logger, so I'm going to phone RacePac on Monday, tomorrow, and see if we can figure that out, because I'd really like to get the information out of the data logger, because this thing has a whole pile of sensors on it: transmission temperature, fuel pressure, engine temperature, EGTs, drive shaft speed. We need that information, so I really need that data logger to work. So try to figure that out. This is an old style V300. The new ones, they don't even make this anymore. The new ones are a V300 SD, which has an SD card in it, so you can just pull the card out, stick it into your laptop, and then read all the information. With this one, I gotta actually have it plugged in to read all the information. But I'll clean up this wiring here. This is all the stuff that comes with the MSD for programming retards and whatnot, and that's all got to get tied up. I'm not using any of that right now, so I'll tie that up, and then in case he ever wants to put nitrous on here, then we're going to start hooking up those wires to activate the timing retards in the box. But transmission's full. The other thing I did, which should make the car a lot safer to get in and out of, is this steering column here used to be up to here, and it was kind of a pain in the ass to get in and out of, because you're always hitting your knees or whatever on that. So I picked up this extension here from Tim McAmis, and it just bolts to the steering wheel, and then the hub bolts to that. So now every time he takes the steering wheel off, the steering wheel will still be in the same place, but when it comes off, you'll have all that extra room to get in and out of the car. So let's turn the power off here. Oh, I can find it. There it is. So I got that. The oil accumulator is in, and I had it running, and I forgot to shut it off before I shut off the accumulator before I shut off the motor. So I'll have to prime it again before I start it again. And then I just have that accumulator valve right here. Well, once this is all together, it'll be a little more secure, but open the valve. It'll leave it open while it's running, because you'll have a safety. If there's ever a loss in oil pressure or whatever, you'll have a reserve in there that will pump oil into the motor if the motor just, loses pressure for some reason. But then after before he shuts the car off, he just has to close that, which closes the valve here, and will retain the oil in the accumulator, so it retains pressure. And then next time he wants to fire the motor, he just uses that to prime the motor. He's just got to pull it open, it'll prime the motor, and then go ahead and fire it up. So this thing has a dry sump pump, and the oil drains back into that system, so it kind of loses its prime. So that's the idea of having the accumulator. It's a safety feature, plus it's a primer. The other thing is this thing is creating a huge amount of vacuum in the crankcase with this vacuum pump. See that the dry sump also pulls vacuum into the system, because it's pulling oil out of the motor, putting it in this tank, and then pressurizing it back in. But with that dry sump and the vacuum pump, the thing was fired it up, and at idle it had like 14 inches of vacuum at idle, and I shut it off and you'd hear this thing go shh. So it's got a little valve on it here that we can adjust the vacuum, so I backed that off to get some relief in there. So now we got about 6 inches of vacuum at idle or something like that. So that's also monitored with the race pack, so I want to know how much vacuum this thing is creating going down track. because too much vacuum is not a good thing. It'll dry out the wrist pins and that'll pull oil away from everything. So carburetors, I went through them, cleaned them all up, changed all the needle and seats, set the float levels, everything's good there. She fires right up, runs really nice. Put new plugs in it. Headers are done, everything fits through the body nice. So really, that's all I have to do is get the race pack working, and I still got to balance these rear wheels. I'm going to take them off and balance them. I got to check the rollout on them too. And this thing is going to be ready to go. So yeah, that's all I got. And I'm still waiting for my intake manifold to come back for the LS motor. I got that all set and ready, and this, I'm hoping the coils will mount under the tunnel ram. Yeah, new belts are in, new window nets in, wiring's all good now, so this thing should be good to go.